everyone. I'm bummed that I'm not getting to connect with you directly in person, but I'm excited to be able to at least answer some of your questions. These are questions from the Valley View Middle School in Minnesota, but if you're watching this for some other reason, like, I hope they're your questions too. So, um, and hi to all of you. So, first off, why is Zoe's favorite animal an octopus instead of another animal? All right, so the octopus, I wanted her to have something that she was connected to, like somewhere that's not in her immediate world, because sometimes you need to be thinking about something out there to be able to envision yourself ever getting out of the hole that you're in. And so I wanted something, and octopus is it's what came to mind first because of like all the eight arms, and I wanted something weird because I think deep down we are all weird on the inside, and um, you know when you're being honest, that's part of that honesty, and so I was sort of you know sitting with the idea, and I thought, oh, this is a great chance to read Cy Montgomery's The Soul of an Octopus, which is a book that I'd wanted to read for a long time. So I thought, okay, so I'll read that as part of the research for the book. And I was 5 pages in, and it was talking about the incredible camouflage, and I thought, that is perfect, because Zoe, she wants to blend in as much as possible at school. And so the combination of all those eight arms and the camouflage and the defensive tactics and how, I mean, the ultimate thing, it's that quote that begins the book where, how the octopus's brain, it evolved because it didn't have a shell. And I feel like there's so many kids like Zoe who have to be smarter and more able to adapt and more able to sort of predict what's going to happen next because they don't have a stable home. And does not mean that they, like, because they don't do after school activities or they don't have great test scores or they don't have their homework at all, does not mean that they're not as smart. And so I loved that what the octopus sort of brought to the table in that way. All right, next question. What process did you go through to create the benefits of being an octopus? So let me tell you, first it was five other manuscripts. They all got rejected. That was part of the process. I wrote one manuscript a year. I revised it. I thought, okay, this is as good as it gets. I sent it out. It got rejected. So that was like 5 straight years of rejection. Although I did get an agent in there, but then you have to get to the next step of like, okay, that the agent loves it, but then we have to send it to editors, and they all still rejected it. So this is my first book that got published, and this was the one where I was convinced that the 2 before this were going to get published. And so I thought, okay, I don't have to sell this one to anyone. I could just write what's honest and real. And of course, it's that honesty that actually resonates, isn't it? So I can't talk about this book without thinking about all the books that went before it. But then once I did start working on this one, it came out of a conversation that I had with a guidance counselor at one of the local elementary schools in my town. In our town, I love it because it's a place where people really have your back and you're not judged based on your clothes and things like that. It was very liberating for me. But it also has a lot of poverty. It also has a lot of kids like Zoe where, 80% of the kids qualify for free and reduced lunch at school, and a lot of their families are just doing what they can to make ends meet and really working to get from one day to the next. And the guidance counselor was like, our kids never see themselves in books. You're a writer. You should write that book. And usually when someone says that, they're talking about something that they're passionate about and you're not really passionate about it. And you need to be passionate about whatever the book is that you're writing. But this is something that I was passionate about. And I thought, when I was growing up, I did not have Zoe's life growing up, but I grew up in a town where I looked around and most of my classmates had 2 parents, and I had one. I had a single mom, and most of them had nicer places to live than I did, and I decided that meant they were better than me. And because of that, they would raise their hand. I'd be like, well, they have important things to say, but my thoughts are not important. And I never, ever considered that I could possibly be a writer because of that. It was 30 years of me being certain that writing was something that I couldn't do. Um, and so when this guidance counselor said that, and I started to sort of mull over the idea and circle around it, Zoe's voice came out so easily, and I realized that it was channeling 30 years of feeling like the people around me were better, and that was something I could remember. I may have gotten to a different place in my life, but it's easy to go back there too. So that was part of the process, and then for any manuscript, I spend about 2 to 3 months sort of circling around that idea, and then about 6 months of drafting, and then the next year or so are different levels of revisions. So revisions based on my critique partners, I send them to my manuscript to other writers who give advice, and I'll do like 2 rounds of 3 writers each. So it's like getting six opinions, and then I get opinions from my agent, and then eventually for this book I had an editor, and so I revised based on that too. And so that meant that there was some basic changes, but the biggest thing is that the beginning, the first 50 pages got rewritten from scratch like 5 different times. So that was a big part of it. And then it's just a process of once you get the big stuff done, then you're working on the little stuff and looking at the punctuation and the word choice, and making sure that everything is telling the story the best way possible. So yeah, let's see. The next question. Are you thinking of writing a sequel? So this is a little complicated. I'm thinking about it because you think about lots of things. But at the moment, my the publisher that published The Benefits of Being an Octopus, they also fired all their children's editors and staff about 6 months before it came out. So they currently hold the rights to any sequel, and they don't currently have any children's editors. So it's a bit of a pickle. But that might change, things could change. So I'm always thinking about it. And if I was going to write a sequel, I feel like I'd be interested to write it from someone else's perspective, like Fuchsia's or Silas's. I feel like it'd be interesting to sort of see how the story continues, but from someone else's eyes. But yeah, at this point, I feel like anyone has as much of an idea of what happens next as I do, because once a book is in readers' hands, that reader is just as much of an expert as the author. Are you currently working on a new book? Yes, and it's not connected, but I love it. I have a new editor, and it's currently called The Flight of the Puffin. And there's just as many puffins in it as octopuses were in this one, which means there are no birds. It's not about birds. But it's about 4 kids living in very different parts of the country, and it explores gender boxes and like how we judge people based on gender, and also political divides, and how the actions of a stranger can have these ripple effects that go out and affect things in ways that you would never expect. And that's due out in spring of 2021. So yeah, I'm super excited about that. Let's see. When you wrote The Benefits of Being an Octopus, what were you hoping that readers would do in response? I was hoping that readers would talk to each other and have conversations about the stuff that's in this book. Like, I feel like books are such a powerful way to discuss really important topics, and these topics are things that are real, and they're real to some people more than others, but the people that they're not real to need to understand them, and the people that they are real to need to be able to have a way to talk about them. And so those conversations, I think, are so important. And I wanted people to talk about the difference in, like, Matt and Zoe. Like, they're in 2 different worlds in some ways, but they also have... It's not necessarily like one's good and one's bad. It's like they're different, and they're coming from different experiences, and they both have their own strengths, and they both have their own superpowers, and they have different ways to approach problems. But I just feel like there's a lot of there's a lot of meaty stuff to dig out and talk about. And so like there's like the idea of the debate, and there's the idea of gun laws, and there's the idea of what it looks like to be in a respectful relationship, and recognizing that actually isn't respectful. Like I think that a lot of times in middle school, friendships can be those things where like you are not being treated in a respectful way by your friends necessarily. And so being able to see that and call it out, and or at least not even call it out, but like move away from it when necessary, is really important. And it's, and people, it happens in life too. So, so yeah, I wanted people to talk about the things. I think that no matter what obstacle is in front of us, the way forward is to talk about it and figure out who can I bring together? Who are the people who have my back? Who are the people like Connor for Zoe, and then Silas later on? Like who are the people who will be there for you and listen and make sure you're getting your voice amplified to the people who need it, who need to hear it. And so I feel like that, I don't know, it's just like I was a community organizer before writing this book, and I just feel like you can, like, talking about something is such a powerful tool to make change. And so it can be change at like your personal life level, or it can be like, but even when you make that change just right here, it sends out these ripple effects that affect everyone around you. And they're like, hey, you know what? They had the courage to do that. Maybe I can too. So, just changing the world. That's my goal. Okay, last question. Let's see, based on time. I kind of answered that one. And now that the book has been out in the world for a while, if you could change one thing, what would you change? That's a hard one. I think in a lot of ways, as an author, you have to be like, this book is now out of my hands and it's in readers' hands, and whatever they think about it, that is like, that's what it is. And I don't know if I would change this, but the one thing that I keep coming back to and thinking about is the ending. And I don't want to say too much just in case someone hasn't read it, but it's always a balance between, like, I want this book to be real. I want it to reflect real life. But I also I want there to be some hope, because I want this to be like, yes, I see myself, and look, there is a way forward. Like there are obstacles, and how do we get past those obstacles? And it's not easy. It's never easy. But what is that first step? What's that second step, if possible? And so with the ending of the book, part of me feels like, oh, there could have been more to be said, but I don't know. I don't think so. Like there's been a lot of people that are like, so there's going to be a sequel, right? Because there's a lot of things that have not quite been solidified, but I feel like it takes the change, when it's a personal change in a person, like when someone suddenly starts to believe that that their words are worth something and that their voice matters, that is the real shift. And that's when, like, who knows what happens next? Because, there's so many ways forward then, that it can go in lots of different directions. But for Zoe, that piece, like, part of me felt like, okay, is it too easy? And I don't think real life can be really hard. And in the book, like, I wanted them to get to a certain place, but I also wanted them to get to that place having, going through lots of the real work that has to go through to get from one place to another. So it's always this balance of real versus hope. And I think that there always is hope, but sometimes it takes a really long time. And it can be painstaking work. And so yeah, I think about the ending a lot. And I think about the characters. But I just know that the people that I know who have been in situations similar to Zoe and her mom are some of the strongest people that I know. And they make all sorts of things possible. So, so yeah, okay, I said that was the last question, but I do have 2 more minutes, so I'm going to do one final one. Let's see. Um, Your website shows that you are involved in your Vermont community and the children's literature community in more ways than being an author. Could you tell us more about that work? Yeah, so, all right, so based on my 2 minutes left, so I started off, I'd never thought of myself as like an activist at all. But then I said yes to a number of things when I was angry about something. Anger can be a really powerful force if you channel it the right way. And that put me at the forefront of like a whole movement in Vermont that was focused on finding the common ground on the gun debate. And the community organizing involved in that taught me about how the actions of like one person, especially when they can get together with 2 other people, so you have like a critical mass of 3, it's super powerful. Like you can do all sorts of things like that. And so I did work on that for a number of years, and but then I sort of applied that same like critical mass piece, 3 people, to other issues that I saw. So when there was a lot of hate being brought up a few years ago and ongoing, I wanted to push back, and it was just regular people saying hateful things, and I thought, okay, well, if they're regular people saying hateful things, then we could be regular people saying that's not okay. And so I started the Local Love Brigade, which was basically sending postcards to victims of hate, just to like say like we've got your back, like we love you how you are, and we are rooting for you. And so like yes, you may get like maybe there was a girl who was getting bullied for being Jewish in New Hampshire, and we sent her cards, and she didn't quite write back, but she wrote to the person who had sort of connected us all, and she's like, I've never felt as like good about who I am before until now. And sometimes strangers, I mean, this is kind of where my next book is connected to, but like sometimes strangers, like love from a stranger can make such a difference. And so that was this, like just sending postcards, it was a simple thing, but then it like moved to like 12 other states that started their own local love brigade to send out postcards. And it's been such a great thing to watch spread, because it's so simple, and love is a powerful force. Whew, it is. And then in the kidlit world, this is something else where I didn't quite mean to start anything, but I ended up I started this sort of kids need books hashtag where it's like authors donating stacks of books. That's why I do this, stacks. And Jarrett Lerner jumped on, and then all these other, like dozens of other authors jumped on donating stacks of books from their bookshelves to classrooms. And what was really cool about that is that then that morphed into a whole mentorship community called Kids Need Mentors, which I organized with Jarrett Lerner and Kristen Crouch and Christine Pacone. And it sort of created this nationwide relationship pairing authors and classrooms. And so that, because one of the things is like authors are regular people. We make mistakes. Our writing is horrible when we first put something on the paper. And like we really believe passionately that connecting these two together was both going to feed the author and feed the class. And so that's another thing where like, gosh, you just have one little idea and it can just sort of grow in a powerful way. Okay, I went over my time. So now I will stop, but it's been lovely to get to talk to you all virtually. And sometime we will meet in person, and it will be awesome, and there will be hugs and high fives and fist bumps, and it will be fabulous.